Welcome back to our show. Certainly people get to rise to the top in any industry, but people do have to work for it. Some people are born with the gift of gab and maybe the ability to sell lots of real estate, and other people maybe prove their worth in different ways in their ability to provide more value than it may actually cost somebody to use their services. Matthew Royal joins us, president and managing broker of Royal Commercial Corp, and has brought insight and innovation to the corporate real estate industry for more than 20 years. Matt, how are you, buddy?
Good, Mr. Brashen. How are you?
I'm excellent. It's a little tougher to cheat in now. I guess big banks can cheat, but it's for a professional who is serving people. It's a little bit tougher to cheat in order to get ahead and build a name for yourself than maybe it is in athletics.
Absolutely. It's cheating in business is kind of a one-trick pony. Mm-hmm. You might be able to pull it off once, but you're not going to have – it's not a sustainable business practice for you to engage in, because the next thing you know, in this community, especially in the Seattle area, it's a small community, even though it's large. You do one bad deal, that will diminish your standing, diminish your business. You do two bad deals, you got 1.5 feet out the door. Yeah, you're cooked. You're cooked.
And then, I mean, of course, in sports, it's so different, right? I mean, there's these, I guess, almost surefire ways to get better. And there's not, even if you wanted to cheat in business, there's no surefire way that just continually makes you better. You do have to earn it a little bit more.
Yeah. There's an exception to every rule. There's nepotism. There's somebody's, brother-in-law or something like that. Or dirty pictures about somebody, you can blackmail. But again, that doesn't work on a sustainable basis.
You are going to do this deal. So, Matt, a lot of what I think is important, though, and I think the way people do rise to the top is actually creating more value than what they're charging. Right. I mean, so there's actually, a net tangible benefit to working with somebody. And I know you do a lot with commercial real estate. And I think most people who own a business and want to have an office are more prone to maybe leasing something than purchasing. Yes. Do you tend to find that? And then how do you add value to a commercial lease how do you do that?
We've talked before a couple times, on one, assembling a team, gaining the trust of the tenant or client that you're working with. Adding value really is a unique proposition to each individual client, and that would be if it's a landlord or if it's a tenant. But adding specific value, which is getting to know the client, understanding what their needs are, short or immediate need, short-term and long-term needs, and then having enough experience to actually craft a deal and structure a deal to meet those needs. Now, every business transaction, as times the economy changes, their plans are going to change. But if you start out with a baseline in your negotiations and when you're structuring the deal, you can actually meet and probably more likely forecast into the future what their changes will be.
Mm-hmm. And I guess that's being able to forecast people's potential needs or desires for a business would be a big value, because especially on the real estate side, because most people who are in business aren't trying to forecast how many square feet they're going to need. They're trying to just figure out how to maybe sell more of their widgets.
Yes, correct. And when you're trying to value that in structure, there's the real estate aspect and the physical bricks and mortar aspect comes into every element of the business. Example, if you were going to enter into a new lease, one of the first questions asked is how many square feet I'm going to need. What do I project? If I'm going to sign a 3 to 5 year deal, what do I think my business is going to do in 3 to 5 years? Now, there's the wild cards in there that say, hey, we just got a huge client and now we need twice the space. Well, that's a great problem to have, and that's a bridge we jump off when we get there. But if you're looking at saying, hey, we have quarterly taxes due, we're going to relocate in March, this is going to cost us a lot. So that's when you go to your real estate professional or your advisor and say, hey, how can I structure this so I don't have this huge out-of-pocket cash hit? That's when you say, well, we're doing a 5-year deal. We're getting 4, 5, 6 months free rent. Let's structure this rent payment or these rent concessions to get you 2 months free rent up front. And then, what's the big expense you have and when does it happen? Or when do you have a slow month in your business? And it's like, well, December is a slow month. Well, then let's take the next 2 to 3 months of rent abatement every December for the next 3 years to try to flatten out and even out your
cash flow.
Yeah.
And so these are these are ideas that most people, if you have never negotiated a commercial lease, this is not stuff you're going to think about. I mean, it's so different than maybe a residential lease.
Correct. And we've talked again before in other shows about how to evaluate a lease, which is a gross lease value, and how the landlord looks at it. In order to effectively negotiate and or structure a deal that works for everyone and everyone's happy with, you have to understand what the other party wants, what their objectives are, how they evaluate things, and that way you can kind of maneuver your position so that they get what they want, you get what you want and need, and at the end, everybody's happy, and it's a well-formed, well-communicated, clearly drafted document that everyone can live with.
And it seems to me that I think you made a really good point. It's adding value to these individual needs because every business is going to have different needs. So understanding what those are, as you talked about, cash flow, maybe it's a big tax payment coming up, maybe it's slow Decembers, all of those come in to where that value can be added because from a business standpoint, a business owner's standpoint, if they're slow in December and you're able to alleviate a rent payment, that may have a huge quality of life increase around the holidays so they can still maybe take their kids on vacation or whatever it may be. Certainly not something people just think about off the top of their head when they're going to get a real estate agent. Like, how's this going to help me, live the life that I'm accustomed to?
Right, or what natural ebbs and flows does my business have? If we do business in Europe, August is a slow month in Europe. If you're in, say, a home and garden center, you do any type of plantings, seed sales, whatever it could be, any widget, then you're going to say May, June, July are great months for us, but after that, it's a change of the season. So just structuring your lease or your rent escalations or the valuation or even the timing of your lease, adding 2 or 3 months to the lease term to get it off a certain cycle or shortening up the lease. Those are little things that your professional should be able to help you with once they understand your business.
And that seems to me, is that common in commercial real estate to really get that involved in somebody's business, flow of business, their annual business, maybe transactions or dollars coming in? Is that a standard practice, or is this something that you over time have realized that you've realized that has become very important to clients, and now you've implemented it?
I think it depends on the level of experience of the person you're dealing with. And for most of the large firms in Seattle, if you're dealing with a senior broker, they understand that. And again, it's up to the client to communicate these needs to their team, whether it's an attorney, whether it's an accountant, whether it's your real estate broker. Once you decide to engage and trust in your partner, you need to communicate all your worries, concerns, and allow them to alleviate those. When you're in the process and you're seeing some concerns you voice that aren't alleviated, well, that's something you might want to touch base with them again on and say, hey, I thought, you were going to resolve some of these things, or I told you this was an issue. We still have that issue. Why do we? So those are some of the, I don't want to say it's a general rule. It's what we do in our firm, and that's why we just keep 99% of our business is referral. So
we're here with Matt Royal, President Managing Broker with Royal Commercial Corp. Matt, so these questions that come up, if you as a broker, you as a commercial real estate agent are asking a business owner these questions, some business owners may feel like they are revealing more than they want to, I would think, at the very beginning, right? What do you mean you want to know what all my busy months are or what Decembers look like? And I would think that it would be a hard hump for some people to get over, to get into this full disclosure on, here's my books, help me create a lease, rather than, hey, help me, I just need you to go find me an office.
Good point. And that does happen. There are some business owners, depending on the size of the company, that just have a hard time trusting any professional, and it's because they've probably been burned sometime in the past. Our approach, or my approach, is that I sit down and I find out the level of knowledge base that my client has. Then I'll spend the first several hours just educating them about the process. If they choose to work with us and say, yeah, we want you to work, then fine, we just have a trust already built. Some business owners, usually mid to small businesses, say, no, just find me space and I'll deal with it. Those aren't probably great clients for us. They're kind of just transactional folks, and one of the bigger houses could probably serve them just fine.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it makes a lot of sense, though, because if you are looking to open, I don't know, a sandwich shop, for lack of a better idea, not that sandwich shops have any positive or negatives.
Right.
But if you're opening a sandwich shop and you kind of have an idea what your numbers are, but you just want this one little store, and that's kind of the end of your desires, or your goals kind of stop there, well, you probably don't need this comprehensive plan.
No, not.
Or you may not feel like you do.
You may not feel like you do, and
you may not have the numbers.
You may not have the numbers, and if you haven't put in the effort and the diligence up front, then you're going to have a hard time getting. Not only does the client need to engage the team needs to make sure the team is engaged with them. And so if the client tenant has done their due diligence, is serious about their business strategy and how they want to go about doing it, they will find good people to help them.
We just have about a minute left, but I want to ask you one more question. How important then is it to involve maybe your bookkeeper or your CPA or your CFO in these types of decisions?
If you're the size of business that has that, it's imperative. I mean, to figure out, okay, what's it the actual cost to either start up or relocate your existing firm, and then see how you're going to amortize that out over the life of the lease. And I'm not an accountant, but most accountants will, if you're going to acquire any new equipment, will want to do the purchase at the move and then amortize that out over the term of the lease. Mm-hmm. That's a varsity sport in the accounting business, mm-hmm. not something that I dabble into. But having a well-rounded plan, as we've talked in other shows, will allow the business owner to sleep well at night and be able to meet the challenges that pop up from time to time in normal business.
Well, Matt, certainly there are ways to add value that you have brought that go well beyond just finding maybe the most valuable piece of real estate. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks.
We do have to go to break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on investment real estate, but not necessarily from a commercial perspective, from a residential, and people who may be out buying houses that they want to lease out. We'll be right back.